Picture a completely mindless piece of silicon. It's just a tiny chip that literally only understands one thing: electrical pulses, zeros and ones. So how on earth does that little rock run a massive, hyper-realistic 3D video game, or instantly connect you to anyone in the world through a web browser?
It's honestly one of the greatest magic tricks of modern science. Down at the absolute bottom, there's no complex logic, just raw physical hardware. But up at the top, where we interact with it, there's endless creativity and complexity. So how do we cross that massive canyon between dumb hardware and brilliant software? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
By the end of this explainer, you're going to completely understand the journey of how human ideas actually translate into machine code. We're going to master the layers of abstraction, from the bare metal all the way up to sky-high logic, and you'll grasp the programming paradigms that keep massive software projects from devolving into pure chaos.
Okay, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, the language of computers. 2, hardware versus abstract models. 3, levels of abstraction. 4, programming paradigms explained. And 5, our summary and next steps.
Section 1. The language of computers, defining the basics. You see, humans and computers fundamentally speak completely different languages.
To get a machine to actually solve a problem for us, we need a shared framework. We call this a computational model. It's basically a system that defines what an algorithm does and how to run it. Think of an algorithm like a recipe, just a series of steps. But the computational model is the kitchen system that says, hey, here is the exact notation you have to use to write this recipe, and here is exactly how it's going to be cooked. Programming languages are simply linguistic applications of these models, designed strictly to give the computer instructions it can actually process.
Section 2. Hardware versus abstract models. Machines versus humans. Because right here is where the split between the physical machine and the human mind gets really stark. This divide is absolutely fascinating. On the hardware side, the model is built purely for machine convenience. CPUs use specific instruction set architectures, like the ARM chip in your smartphone or the x86 chip in your laptop. These are engineered for raw execution speed and saving battery life. They are definitely not meant for human reading. But then, on the theoretical side, we have abstract models, like the famous Turing machine. Abstract models don't care about your battery life or physical memory limits. They are basically boundless, theoretical playgrounds where computer scientists can explore algorithms and figure out what's mathematically possible.
But wait, this is important. A quick reality check here. If the hardware model is strictly for machines and abstract models are strictly for theory, how do humans actually build practical software? Because let me tell you, neither of those extremes is actually helpful for a software developer sitting at a desk trying to code a new app. Which brings us to Section 3, levels of abstraction, climbing the translation ladder to see how we bridge this massive gap. To solve this massive communication problem, we use abstraction. Let's think of abstraction just like cooking. Low-level abstraction is like cooking entirely from scratch. You're controlling the soil, you're harvesting the wheat, you're milling the flour, making the dough. That's your ground-level view. You have absolute total control, but man, it takes forever. High-level abstraction, on the other hand, is like using a meal kit or just ordering a pizza. It's a satellite view. You don't care about the dirt, you just want the end result. In computer science, high-level languages automate all those tedious, low-level memory details so programmers can work much faster and way more safely. Let's walk through this translation journey, starting from the bottom up. Step 1, at the absolute bottom, is machine code, pure zeros and ones. Step 2 is assembly language, where we add some very basic text instructions. Step 3 jumps up to middle-level languages, like C and C++. And finally, Step 4, at the very top, represents high-level languages like Python or JavaScript, where we write instructions that honestly almost look like plain English. Let's look closely at that very bottom layer, machine code. This consists of millions of binary bits, just zeros and ones, that are directly executed by the CPU. This is the native format. It's the only computational model a computer can actually run. But here's the catch. It is completely hardware dependent. A pattern of zeros and ones meant for an Intel chip is total, literal gibberish to an Apple ARM chip.
Now, you might be asking, if machine code is what the CPU understands natively and it executes the absolute fastest, why don't we just write everything in zeros and ones? Well, back when computers were first invented, programmers actually did,
but it is incredibly labor-intensive and hugely prone to catastrophic errors. Take the Apollo 11 moon landing. The software for that was written in assembly language, which is just a tiny textual step above pure binary, and it took an immense amount of painstaking, tedious manual work. Today, human time is way more expensive than computer hardware, so we just can't afford to code that way anymore.
So, the crucial point here is finding a sweet spot. Middle-level languages like C and C++ act as the ultimate compromise. They execute nearly as fast as low-level code, but they let you use structures humans can actually read. Most importantly, they allow direct access to the hardware. And this is exactly why, essentially all operating system kernels, the absolute core of Windows, macOS, and Linux, plus all your device drivers, are written in C or C++. They provide the heavy lifting infrastructure for the rest of our software.
But as we move further up that ladder to high-level languages, we start building massive applications. We're talking hundreds of thousands or millions of lines of code. Section 4, Programming Paradigms Explained, or how to organize your code so you don't completely lose your mind.
To keep these massive projects organized, we need a really strong philosophy. And this brings us to the concept of a programming paradigm. It's basically a philosophy and an approach for organizing your code, the ideas in your program, and the actual layout of the source code. Now, what's really interesting here is the distinction between a level of abstraction and a paradigm. Abstraction is kind of a spectrum, right? You can be sort of high level, but a paradigm is an absolute rule. A language either follows that specific philosophy or it doesn't. The two biggest competing philosophies here are imperative versus declarative programming. Imperative programming is basically like being a micromanager. You're giving extremely specific, step-by-step orders. Open the file, read line 1, check if it's a number, add it to memory. Low-level languages are all imperative. Declarative programming, on the other hand, is like being a big-picture manager dictating a desired outcome. You just say, hey, give me all the numbers from this file. A great example is SQL for querying databases. You just declare what data you want, and the system figures out the imperative steps behind the scenes to actually go fetch it.
Quick question for you. Have you ever heard the term spaghetti code and wondered what it actually means or why programmers hate it so much? Well, in early languages, developers used a command called goto to literally jump the execution of the program from, say, line 10 all the way to line 500 and then back to line 20. In large programs, if you tried to trace the path of execution, it literally looked like a tangled bowl of spaghetti. It made the code nearly impossible to read or fix.
Structured programming is the paradigm that finally fixed the spaghetti code crisis. Instead of wild, chaotic go-to jumps, it forces programmers to use clean, logical control flows. So you use if-then, conditionals, and while loops. This creates crystal clear inside and outside relationships. You can visually look at a block of code and know exactly what steps are going to loop and what happens next. Because of this, almost all modern middle and high-level languages strongly enforce structured programming. Let's break down how we further organize that structured imperative code, because there are two major subtypes. First is procedural programming. This is where we break code down into small, modular, reusable tasks called functions. For example, you might have a procedure named g_socket_connect that just handles internet connections. Second, we have object-oriented programming. Here, we organize code around objects that contain both data and procedures together. Think of modeling a real-life concept, like a robot. The robot object holds its data, like its name and age, and its procedures, like a greeting function. It perfectly mirrors how humans naturally categorize the world, which is exactly why it's been massively successful for high-level languages like Java and Swift. We have covered an incredible journey today. Section 5, Summary and Next Steps. Let's bring it all together to really lock this in. To summarize our translation journey, we have low-level languages like assembly focusing purely on direct bare metal hardware control. We have high-level languages like Python focusing on abstract logic and human productivity. We have the imperative paradigm like C giving explicit step-by-step instructions. And we briefly touched on functional paradigms based on theoretical models like the lambda calculus, which treat absolutely every action as a pure mathematical function. Ultimately, all of this works because of a truly fascinating theory called the Church-Turing thesis. It states that an algorithm can be converted from any reasonable computational model to another.
This scientific theory is literally the secret sauce for why this entire translation ladder actually works. It proves that whether you are coding in high-level Python, C++, or raw assembly language, they all ultimately have the exact same mathematical power to run the algorithms. The translation from an abstract human idea down to those exact ones and zeros is mathematically guaranteed.
But that brings up a pretty mind-bending question to end on. If abstract models and high-level languages let us mathematically design absolutely any algorithm, what are the physical limits of the actual physical hardware running them? Like how fast can that silicon actually process those zeros and ones before the laws of physics push back? That is exactly what we're going to explore in our next explainer on computer systems design. You will definitely want to stick around for that.